Hello everybody. Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about leatherworking. I've had several people ask questions about exactly what my process is, and I may have preached a little bit about knife makers that make beautiful knives and have poopy sheaths. So I'm not going to go really into depth. This is just to kind of familiarize you with my process. Again, understand there are professional leatherworkers out there. I think it's Leotis Leather is one of the guys I follow on YouTube who is just absolutely tremendous at what he does. So check these guys out. I'm going to give you some highlights, and this is how we do it here in the shop. So basically, we're just going to take some scrap leather, and I'm going to put some stuff together for you, and so that you can see, the highlights of how I would put a sheath together. So let me swap up the camera again. I grab your Dramamine while I adjust everything. Ba-bam. I still have not replaced the tape that's holding the phone to the boom. Okay, here we go. Alright, steady as she goes. So, here we go. We got some leather here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to split this, and we're going to call this the front and back of our sheath. So, this is going to be the back of the sheath. This is going to be the front of the sheath. This will be up here toward the edge. So, a welt is something that you always want in your knife sheath. So, basically what happens, I'm going to risk it. I'm not going to put my glove on. This is a contact cement right here, and we're going to coat this side. We're going to coat this side, and we're going to start with this one here. Now, of course, patience is a virtue, and that's probably why I don't have any. But it's not going to take long. I hit it with the heat gun just to accelerate the drying process. I put a thin layer of glue on each piece. You do not want it thick. You do not want it globbed on there. Okay. So we'll take this piece, which would be the welt. It goes face down. Come back in with the hammer. This helps seat it in place. And now, of course, we got to put a little bit of line of glue on top of it. It's the reason I didn't do it before, because I'd have had to get my hands all gluey and disgusting nasty. Again, look what a thin layer I'm putting on there. Let this dry a little bit. And then if you were doing a wrap sheath or something, this piece goes on there. And back comes the hammer. And you can see we have a 3-layer sandwich here. Normally I take this to the sander, and this would be the edge of the sheath. And what I would do is I'd actually trim up the edge of the sheath here so that we'd have a square edge. This is called a stitching groover. This actually cuts a little channel for the stitching to ride in. Let me adjust this real quick for you guys. Bring it on down some. Bring it on down. Bring it on down. There we go. Whoa. I got a cat in the bottom of this thing shaking it, so if there's a camera issue, it's the cat's fault. Alright. So you can see we've got a groove cut in there. And now, this bad right here, it's known as a stitching chisel. So we start in the groove. Now you see we've got 4 of these guys right here. So in order to kind of keep the groove going, no pun intended, I'm actually going to put one of these right here, if you can see that, and then let the 3 actually do the cutting. And you continue all the way down the line of your sheath, and you can see that we have these nice little diamond shaped holes. Okay, so now it's time to do the stitching, and what I have here is a big bag of called harness needles. They got a big egg eye on them, and we have some wax thread. I'm going to take a short length. And I use what's called a saddle stitch, which uses 2 needles. There's one. Okay, there we go. So when you get in here, I'm actually, instead of, most people are going to start at that first hole. That's not what we're going to do. We're actually going to come back. We're going to start down here at the third one. But before we start stitching, we're going to need something known as an awl, which is this guy right here. And by the time you run a thread through there a couple times, it's really hard to poke this through. So the awl comes in, and the awl, which is also diamond shaped, if you can see, goes in and opens up the already existing hole. This allows you to stitch easier. So we're going to open up 3 of them. Bam. We'll start with the third hole down. Okay, now we're going to stitch up and then back over it. So I'm going to go through here, pull, through here, pull, and now you see I've basically, you can only see 2 stitches, but I'm at the top stitch. Same thing with this guy. Split a thread right there. Hang on. Pull the slack out, and you hush your mouth. You've already been fed. Pull it taut, and you guys can see that we have a couple of stitches going in there. So, but there's a bit of a problem with all this. Let me readjust my camera. Whoa, that's a close-up. Okay, so you can sit there on your work table and put this bad boy together. These are a lot of things to hold on to, and it gets to be quite an aggravation because you need to hold the leather, you need to hold both needles, and you just don't have enough hands unless you've got other prehensile appendages. You're going to have a bad time. So this whole thing has kind of been an elaborate infomercial lead-in to something I did last night. If you follow me on Instagram, put a photograph up last night, and I actually built something I've always wanted. Now, we do a fair amount of leather work here. We do a lot of purses, a lot of things like that, a lot of scout bags. Yeah, I do leather work too. I really like leather. But stitching's always a madness because if you hand stitch, it's hard to hold this. Now, back in the day, they would have something called a leather clamp. And basically, it's a hardwood clamp that actually grabs onto the leather like this, so it frees your hand so you're free to actually manipulate the needles and everything. So that's kind of the stand-up version. But there's a sit-down version that's known as a stitching horse or a stitching pony. And I made one the other evening, and I want to show you guys that. So let me again move our camera here. All this camera work. And blah, blah, blam. That is a stitching pony. So it's not really huge. No, got a left. Woo! Okay, so this bad boy right here has this clamp right here, and it has this strap through it. So basically, this piece right here is fixed. This piece right here is fixed. This piece is actually on a hinge, and there's a foot pedal right there. You can see that it's actually hooked into the strap. So what's going to happen is that I can actually engage and disengage that foot pedal. When I disengage it, you see I've got slack in this guy right here. All right, so the idea is I can come in, put the stitching just above there, and then using this foot pedal, actually tighten this guy down so that my hands are free to actually go to work here. And so I can actually come in with the awl. And it's much faster to do it with the aid of a stitching clam or a stitching pony than it is just by holding it by hand. So zoom, zoom, zoom. That one comes in. The other thing that's really nice about using a stitching horse is the fact that you see how I'm pulling that string back? It pulls it out of the way of the next needle going through. so that you don't actually end up piercing the other thread. If you pierce the other thread when the needle goes through, it won't pull down tight and it makes a mess. So, and now we can just absolutely zoom through this bad boy because it's being held. Tighten that thing up, and we've got a very clean stitch line. So guys, if you can see that, it's a pretty good stitch line. Now that's some belly leather, so it's a little soft, but you can see the stitches are sucked down in there pretty well. So stitching horse, that's the basic process for leather work. These are things that you don't have to have. I haven't had one of these the entire time I've been making knives, and I'm very happy to have this one. So guys, again, questions, comments, please share the video. I'll see you guys a little bit later.